Hello everyone, I'm Edward Nguyen, your host for Collectibles and Coffee. Today is Wednesday, September 22nd, 2020. My beverage for this morning is a dark roast coffee with a tiny splash of almond milk. This seems to be the trendy thing to do nowadays. Before we get in, we're going to look at Pokemon today. This is one of those huge media franchises everyone knows about. We'll be looking at the history of it, how to get in, and for the ever persistent question that I always seem to get, I found some old Pokemon cards from when I was a kid. What do I do with them now? To give a little background about the franchise itself, it was established back in 1995. It was a media franchise founded by Nintendo. I'm sure we all know about them. Since then, in the 25 years that they've operated, they have solidly cemented themselves as the most valuable media franchise brand in the world. They have grossed nearly $100 billion over 25 years, and that includes through merchandise, video games, and trading cards. To put this into perspective about how big this media franchise is, some of the other major media franchises that we can look at that we've all heard about as well. Star Wars has grossed $70 billion. Marvel Cinematic Universe, all the subsidiaries, all those, individual heroes, the entire franchise. Harry Potter, Transformers, these have all grossed between $30 and $40 billion. Toy Story, Batman, Spider-Man, Dragon Ball, and Transformers have grossed between $20 and $30 billion. To say that Pokemon alone has grossed $100 billion is a truly staggering number when you put into perspective how big it is and how much it has permeated into our society today. The TCG itself was first released in Japan in October 1996, but it wouldn't be until January 1999 when the cards would first make their way to America. At which point, Wizards of the Coast was the company that would have the rights to license and print Pokemon up until 2003. At which point the rights were transferred to the Pokemon Company International, which continues to hold the rights to print Pokemon cards to this very day. This era of Pokemon from 1999 to 2003 is probably the one that most of us have grown up with, are the most familiar with, and has produced some of the most iconic cards of the entire game. Some of these have recently exploded in market value. We see these as being largely analogous to what Wizards of the Coast has referred to as reserve lists in the hobby Magic the Gathering. For those who may not be familiar with Magic, the reserve list is a guarantee that was made by Wizards of the Coast back in the early days, saying that there is a list of cards on this list. These cards would not be reprinted at any point in the future in any form, including functional reprints. There are some cards from that have been made as judge promos, foils, alternate art. There are some exceptions to this, but those cards, for the most part, will no longer be reprinted in the future. As a result, there is a very finite supply of these cards, and as demand for the game continues to grow, as some of these older formats continue to prosper, and as cards naturally are destroyed to attrition, the value on these cards have slowly climbed over the years. In many ways, the WotC era Pokemon cards are viewed largely in the same light. From the era, 1999 to 2003, most of those cards, it's very, very unlikely that we will see those cards be reprinted again for multiple reasons. The primary reason, obviously, is that Wizards of the Coast no longer has the right to print those cards, and it's unlikely that the Pokemon Company International would go back and print some of those cards from that era. In addition, those sets were tied to the video games from that time. So as new games are coming out, there's always a new generation of Pokemon. We always hear people referring to first gen as the original 150 Pokemon. Today I believe we are on Gen 8 with the release of Sword and Shield this past year, which comes out with a new video game and a new set of Pokemon as a result. Some of those cards have really started to pick up in price in more recent years. In August 2017, a little more than 3 years ago at this point, Beckett published an article that a card they had graded a pristine 10, not a black label though, a pristine 10 first edition Charizard from the base set had closed at auction for over $55,000. It is very likely that a Charizard today probably would be worth well over $100,000 by conservative estimates, but it's hard to find data because most of these auctions don't happen publicly, and most of these sales are collector to collector, collector to investor, and they tend to be more private since a lot of the higher-end collectors don't want to make their collection known for a multitude of reasons. We've also seen mainstream media pick up on these. We've seen Pokemon cards be featured on the television show Pawn Stars. Someone had brought in a massive collection of Charizards. That brought a lot of publicity and light to the card game itself. In 2016, we saw the release of Pokemon Go, which was one of those things that more or less brought people back to the game. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has to walk around. Why not play this game while you walk, get your exercise in, and get some enjoyment out of it? Today, we've seen cards continue to boom in price. Pokemon still has a massive following, even as a lot of us are starting to get older. A lot of people are starting to look back and reminisce on their childhood. For me, I was 10 years old when the game first came out to America in 1999. Today I'm 31. And whenever I'm at vending at events, the people I deal with online, there are plenty of people who are still looking back to go back and capture a little bit of their childhood by trying to collect old cards, by thinking back to, my sibling and I, we opened up these cards as a little kid, and some of them have been lost over time. A damp shoebox in the attic, probably not the best place to store your cards. So a lot of these cards have been destroyed over time, but you still have people who have more disposable income who are able to drop money and are wanting to buy these cards back. I'm going to show I have some examples here of cards, and just to kind of see how big the game has gone for people who are not too familiar. This is a Shining card. This is a WotC era card. This was printed in 2002. Per the label, this was one of the last sets that Wizards of the Coast printed. This is fairly iconic. This is a Shining Raichu. This is a little bit closer. I hope everyone can see this. If you look at the cards themselves, I think compared to many other card games, the cards have a phenomenal quality. The camera may not be able to show it. I'll try and highlight it in the light as best as possible. But if you look at the foiling on Raichu itself, it stands out quite a bit from the rest of the card. This foiling process has only been done one other time. They have printed another set of Shining Pokemon. But the nature of these cards are very collectible. There's a lot of demand for them. Some of them are very iconic. And finding them in this condition is quite difficult. The booster boxes themselves from this set are also quite expensive and have become highly collectible to a lot of people as they want the sealed product themselves. From the era, due to an oversight in the printing process, you want to make sure that if you're looking to buy sealed product, that you are able to protect yourself from being scammed. The booster packs are very collectible, mainly because they have different artwork of different Pokemon inside the set. But those packs you don't want to open. The value is entirely inside the pack, in the pack itself, not inside rather, but in the pack being sealed. The value of the cards inside the pack are unlikely to be equivalent to the value of the pack. We've seen this with all games. This is called expected value. If the expected value of the pack were ever to exceed the price of the pack itself, that means that you would come out ahead if you were able to open these packs over and over and over again. However, finding these products sealed is very, very difficult, and you have to be able to protect yourself because Pokemon product is subject to being weighed. And what that means is cards that are foil are heavier than cards that are not foil. So you see a lot of people listing packs as light or heavy. And what that means is these packs have been opened from a box. They have been weighed on a very sensitive scale. And if the pack is heavy, it means that it is likely to contain a foil inside, which are the more valuable cards inside a set. And if they're light, that means that there's no foils. For example, in a Pokemon base set box, you should expect to find 12 heavy packs and 24 light packs. And usually when people open them, it's hard to find the provenance to say that this pack that I bought from someone else isn't weighed. I may not weigh the pack myself, but I don't know if this person weighed the pack. And, we can try and trace the provenance back as far as we can, but unless you're buying from a reputable source, from a real store that has a lot more to lose with their reputation taking a hit than what they would gain from weighing the pack itself, you should buy sealed packs and keep them sealed unless they're specifically marketed as being heavy or being light. That being said, you have blister packs, which are also something that are fairly attractive. I don't believe I have a blister handy to show it as an example, but they come, you see them hanging up at big box stores such as Target or Walmart. They're sealed inside a cardboard display holder that they can be used to store on racks or whatever. Those cannot be weighed because of how heavy the cardboard itself is and how much fluctuation there is inside the pack. That being said, it's not just WotC era or bust. The game itself, from when WotC stopped printing the cards in 2003, has continued to boom. It's still very, very popular in Japan. Games are still being made. You still have merchandise being made. Cards are still being printed. People are still drawn to the game more than ever, and people are still loving to collect. I do have some examples on my desk here, just to kind of give an example for people who may not have seen more recent cards to see what they look like, and just to show how prevalent Pokemon has become in today's society. Shout out to you guys in the chat. Thanks for tuning in live. I appreciate you guys. So I have some promos here. These are all fairly recent promos. If we look at this is a promo from the Sword and Shield. Jesus, I'm getting my sets mixed up. There was previously an expansion called Sun and Moon. We are now on Sword and Shield. I'll hold it up to the camera so I can look at. If you look at the cards themselves, I think the cards look absolutely gorgeous. In terms of power level, this card is probably unplayable, but obviously this card is something that is very, very cool because of the art, because of what it looks like, and just, there's cute Pokemon on here. This is how the Pokemon company has done so well over the years. I'm pretty sure even if you're my age, even if you're 30, you can look at this card and just think, this card looks sweet. The art is huge, it's gorgeous, it's very vibrant colors, and these are just so collectible even though the card has very, very little gameplay value. These are cards, look at these. These are promos that were given out when the Munch exhibit was in Japan, in Tokyo. They did art exhibit. This is obviously a reference to his famous piece, The Scream. There are some additional ones of these. That some of them are quite a bit rare, and they're getting fairly hard to find because these promos were only given out when the exhibit was live in Tokyo. I want to say it's probably been about 3 years ago at this point. So these are becoming highly collectible, especially the full set. Some of them are more rare than others, but they have a lot of collector value. Again, these cards, not super playable, just very cool to look at. Very cool collector piece that just shows that when you look at something like a mainstream art exhibit, for those who don't know, the piece itself, The Scream, I believe closed at auction in like 1999 to a collector for close to $100 million. And we think that the Pokemon has enough company, the Pokemon company has enough sway to be able to get licensing rights to print this art and then distribute it as something as large and mainstream as an art exhibit. That really goes to show how big the brand is. This is an example of a promo. This was also printed. This was last year. This is just an example of how in touch Pokemon is with today's society. This is just a promo that was given out at a new Pokemon Center, which is an officially licensed store in Shibuya, Japan. If you ever seen a picture of 5,000 people crossing the street, that's Shibuya. That's one of the biggest crossings in Japan. It has like, you know, there's like 8 different roads leading into it. There's like 10 lanes. There's just a giant crosswalk. Every time it changes, a bunch of people cross. They have a Pokemon Center there. There are Pokemon Centers all over Japan, all in the major cities. Tokyo has 4 Pokemon Centers, I believe. There's one in Yokohama, there's one in Osaka, one in Sapporo. Basically, every major city in Japan has a Pokemon Center. And usually, whenever the new Pokemon Centers open, they usually do some sort of special promo that you can only get at that particular center that is, you know, that has some sort of theme about the location itself. Yokohama has a cool, you know, little Pikachu wearing like a seaman's outfit. It's on a boat. Looks great. But they've done this. There's a lot of promos. These things pretty popular. And this last example I'll show here is a promo. This is an ultra rare. Pokemon has done very well by creating secret rares, which are cards that exceed the collector number value inside the set itself. So the set itself contains 173 cards. This card is number 226. There are cards that go beyond this, which are part of the pack, but most of them are secret rares. They usually have alternate art. They've done, you know, special treatment, full art or whatever. It makes these cards look very cool. It's also not super easy to see. There's no way my webcam will be able to show it, but there's actually texture on this, on the face of the card itself. The card itself looks very nice. Aesthetically, it's very pleasing. You can find a normal copy that without all the gold, without all the reflective surfaces on it that make it look as appealing as it is. These are just some examples I have. There's, you know, no shortage of cool cards that Pokemon has. In terms of merchandising, we've all seen, you know, a lot of, you know, people have backpacks, people have sleeves, people have play mats just for the trading card game itself. People have done a lot of cool things. You know, there's a lot of fan art out there. This is an example of a Pokemon plush I have. He's a little dusty. But this company, Beams, is a very, very big, apparel company in Japan. So when they did a cross collaboration between Pokemon, it says Pokemon on the back here, if I can move his tail, and Beams, this was a huge deal. Beams made a line of shirts for Pokemon that do feature, it basically features a shadowed version of a Pokemon card on the back, and it has a Beams logo on the front. Those were very, very popular. Those were very, very popular at the time. Again, Beams it's a brand in Japan. People look at it in terms of apparel the same way that, people would recognize someone wearing an Adidas track jacket with like Arsenal on the front, for example. I don't know if Arsenal actually is sponsored by Adidas. But this really goes to show how mainstream Pokemon has made it. There are a lot of the promos are given away at 7-Eleven. A lot of clothing brands have done cross collaborations with Pokemon. It really, really goes to show how strong of a brand it is and how big of a deal it is when a company is able to license their product, produce trading cards, produce apparel, and be able to sell them in popularity in the country. That being said, we fast forward today, right? We've been in pandemic for roughly about 6 months now. The prices on a lot of this stuff has absolutely exploded in price. A lot of this stuff just has gone through the roof. For example, I'll go back to my Shining Raichu card here. This card, when I bought this a few years ago, I think I won this at auction. I don't think it was even that long ago. I want to say it was about a year ago. I won this at auction for about $600. Most recent eBay auctions have this closing probably over $2,000. PWCC is a pretty big company. They are a consignment company. We see them on eBay. They are usually a kind of generic reference point that people go to for high-end graded cards. Mainly because a lot of people will submit their cards and PWCC will use their brand. You can look them on eBay. They have a ton of feedback. They basically sell nothing but high-end cards, graded cards, sealed boxes, sports cards, Magic cards, Pokemon cards, old baseball cards. There's been a lot of very, very high-profile auctions that have ended. I want to say last summer, the Alpha 9.5 Black Lotus, for those of you who are familiar with Magic Gathering, closed on there for, I don't remember exactly what the price was, but that was a big deal at the time. But if you look at recent auctions, they do a monthly auction. The way the process works is that if you want something to go on a cycle, you have a certain deadline to get your cards in by. They'll basically do the research, the legwork, whatever it takes for people for them to get the information, get the data, and then they'll make the listing for you. And then because they're a consignment company, they'll take a cut of whatever the final sale price is. The biggest draw there, the reason why people use consignment companies is because for people who don't have a lot of feedback, don't have a lot of experience selling, this gives an opportunity to piggyback on a giant like PWCC and really get the high visibility premium customers that you want bidding on your collection. I know, David, it's crazy when we look at some of this stuff. Like, there's a lot of regrets from people who have these cards that just look back and if you'd held on, you would have done well. I know this Pikachu is also really angry. I'm not sure why. I wish they had made it a little bit happier, but for some reason, a lot of Pikachu seem to be portrayed as very angry. Anyways, a lot of these cards have done very well, and as a result, since the beginning of the pandemic, we have seen a massive surge in these collectible versions, especially high-end graded versions. And part of that makes me think that when we first saw the drop in stimulus money back in April, May, about 4 months ago, we saw a lot of people going out and starting to buy up these cards. And that was kind of the first spike that happened. We saw, these graded cards go for more. If you're an average person that has, that's 30 years old, working middle class job, has middle class income, there's probably an upper limit to how much you can really spend on, your hobbies, toys, collectibles, etc. So getting a $1,200 windfall if you fell below, if you fell in tax bracket making below $75,000 a year, all of a sudden you have, this amount of money that you can play with. What are you going to do with it? Well, you can't go out and take a vacation, right? You can't fly anywhere, right? Flying was pretty restrictive at that time still. That was before a lot of restaurants were open. That was before people could really get out and spend their money and do things, right? So what are you left with? It means that people went out and they rediscovered their hobbies. We saw a massive supply in Switches. A lot of people put their money towards building a new computer. A lot of people were buying up, just hobby items in general. So if you had $1,200, it made more sense for you to spend $1,200 in as few big things as possible. I noticed during that time, my sales were largely concentrated on big items. A lot of people were wanting to buy, in terms of Magic, people were wanting to buy dual lands. Guy's Cradle, that's a reserve list card. I'll be talking about Magic much more in the future. Magic is really where I got my start. That's what I'm most familiar with. I'll be talking much more about Magic in the future for those who don't know. Again, stay tuned for a future episode. I'll be talking more about it then. But those cards did the best. Guy's Cradle, before it had spiked recently, it was hovering between $350 to $400, depending on condition, depending on language, etc. There was a point when basically all the cheap copies had dried up on the market, and today Guy's Cradle is probably in the $800 to $900 range. I haven't looked recently. I'm out of stock of them. They all sold during that time. And that's kind of just a very, very small snapshot of what happens during this time, and what happened when a bunch of this money has been injected into U.S. economy and the types of things that people are buying up. So today, right, I still buy and sell Pokemon cards through online sales channels. A lot of people really started to rediscover the hobby again, kind of this time. I've gotten messages from some old high school friends, a lot of people that I have not talked to in years, and they've reached out to me and they said, hey, I just went back, I found some old cards that were sitting in the closet from when I was a kid. People are spending more time at home, people have more chances to do things like get spring cleaning done, empty out these old closets, rediscover the old hobbies. And people have been approaching me just asking, what can I do with all these cards? Like, how can I get rid of them? Or maybe some of them are looking to sell, right? It makes sense. They don't really care for the hobby. They've done well, so they don't care for it. A lot of people, who have rediscovered their hobby are looking for ways to get in. Maybe they have kids now that they're looking to pass their Pokemon cards into and find a way that they can share their hobby. And we see this very, very prevalent in the Pokemon community. A lot of people, again, my age, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, they're starting to settle down. They have a family, they have kids, they have their own home, they have more disposable income. They're starting to expand and share their hobby with their children, and they're building a future generation of Pokemon players. That, I think, is one of the most fundamental keys to Pokemon success. They've done well because it's really a multi-generational hobby. People that, my age, that got their start, there's been plenty of people who've collected Pokemon their whole life. And now that their kid is getting into Pokemon, that's a hobby that they can share with them. I know a lot of people that just buy a product, have fun, they don't care about the value, they simply like to open packs and play at home with their kids, and that's all they do. They don't worry about going to stores to play, they don't worry about the game itself. They're just looking at, hey, this card has cool art, how can we collect, how can we get more, how can we share a collection among us? And I think that's really what's kept Pokemon doing so well for as long as they have, whereas a lot of other hobbies people kind of get older, they grow out of, it's not such a big deal to them, especially when they start leaving for college. So like David in the chat here, he the comment he wrote here is, "That's why I got back in to enjoy it with my niece and future kids. It's why the game will continue. Magic will struggle with that facet the way we are going today." So Magic, kind of a different animal. My thoughts will be in a future episode. But again, David's a perfect example here. Enjoy it with his niece. If he has kids in the future, I'm sure they'll be able to enjoy Pokemon as well. Again, not necessarily thinking just purely in terms of financial value, because that's why we're here, because we're more interested in the market itself. But there really is something in this game for everyone, whether you are looking for these high-end graded cards, looking to build an investment portfolio, or just looking for things that look cool, that have cool art. These are in Japanese. I have no idea what these cards do, but I can appreciate them. And I know a lot of people who buy cards from me buy cards for the very, very simple reason they look cool. And that's all there is. And that's perfectly fine, right? These cards have no functional value. This is very, very different from Magic the Gathering. A lot of the cards' value is tied into its power level, how powerful it is. The most expensive cards in the game, the Power 9, the so-called iconic Black Lotus, is deemed as one of the most powerful cards in Magic. These cards have commanded a very, very high price tag as a result. But when we look at something like sports cards, Pokemon cards, the majority of the value is inside the aesthetics of the card. How cool does the card look? How collectible is the game? How collectible is the market? And these are all things that make a lot of these very, very different from Magic Gathering and some of the other hobbies that we'll look at in the future. So anyone right now, I'm just trying to keep this simple. I know we covered a lot today. There's a lot to go on. I can't cover, 25-year history of Pokemon in 30 minutes as much as I would like to. I do have some plans in the future for interviews with some Pokemon collectors, with some people who have been at this for a very long time. There are very, very cool things I'm sure that they'll share with you. But for now, this is just kind of an intro. This is the market. This is kind of a beginner's guide. I expect the audience that would draw the most from this is someone who is just looking to get back into the game. Perhaps they found a box of cards in a closet, they kind of dabbled in it, or maybe are beginner, or looking to have some extra hobby money that they have, and they want to get rid of their old cards, or maybe they're looking to expand and perhaps buy some more. David, I could go as well. There's infinite content I could do on Pokemon. Again, trying to keep this simple, trying to keep this accessible for most people. We'll go into more details later, but as of today, September 2nd, we're in the middle, still pandemic, still a very volatile marketplace. I think the advice I would give to people right now is that if you're not super concerned about money, you have a card that you like, a token of your childhood, as it were, I would go out and buy it sooner rather than later. The rate which Pokemon cards have been disappearing off the market is really indicative that people are starting to put a lot of money into it. Whether that, I'm not saying it's all organic. There's probably some level of buyouts that happen. That's something that we'll discuss at a later time. It may not all be organic, but there is some amount of people that, as I mentioned, people buy cards because they look cool, they're collectible, people like them. There's no shortage of people that are in this for financial gain, that are looking to invest, are looking for a place to park their money. But far, far, far away, the majority of the Pokemon customer base are people who buy these things because they're cool. That's it. If you see something you like, I would buy it now. I'm not trying to create a rush in the market. I'm not trying to say that you should go out and just be buying every Pokemon card you see. Spend your money wisely. And if you see something you like, you should just buy it. If it means that you'll get enjoyment out of it, whether, you buy a slab. A lot of people have these on display. A lot of people have showcases with these out. A lot of people like them. They like the way they look. That's why grading companies have done very well, especially during the pandemic. People buy them because they're cool. That's really all there is to say about it. That being said, be careful. Make sure you protect yourself when you're buying online. A lot of people use Facebook, eBay, their TCG player. These are all Troll and Toad. These are all sites that sell Pokemon cards that have a lot of people buy on them, sell on them. At the end of the day, you just want to be careful. Make sure you're doing your research. Make sure you know how to protect yourself. Pay securely. Buy from reputable people. If this person has a sketchy looking Facebook profile that's new, that doesn't have a lot of friends, I would stay away from buying from that person. Support your local game store. They're really the ones who keep the hobby industry alive for as long as it has. Buy from reputable sources. I can't stress that enough. There is a lot of people who are out there looking to pull a fast one on you, especially in the Pokemon market when they know that there's a lot of people who are just looking to get back in. Protect yourself from being scammed. Buy from someone who is reputable. I'm not going to go too deep into where you can look, but again, there's no shortage of stores that have a lot of feedback that do very well selling Pokemon. I would look there first and make sure that what you're buying is a real product and that you're able to protect yourself in the event of a scam. That'll be it for today's episode. I went on a little bit longer than I expected. There's still so much more to talk about. Pokemon will be a topic that we will be coming back to over and over and over again, especially as new changes hit the marketplace. Every month, PWCC has a big auction. All the Pokemon cards are on sale for one day. I'll give insights onto what I think are good buys, especially some of the higher end cards. I know a lot of investors go crazy on that stuff, a lot of collectors as well. I'm sure I'll be reviewing those in a future episode. This month's actually happened last week, a few days ago actually. If I have a chance, I'll talk more about it. I do plan on having a very special guest on in the next few days. We're currently scheduled for Friday, maybe a little bit tentative, Friday, September 4th. We're a little tentative based on schedule, but he has done very well with Pokemon. He does a lot of grading. I'm going to keep who it is a secret for now, but until then, people can find me on Twitter at Edwin13. The social media platforms for Vermilion PDX is on the right here. We're on TCG Player. We are on eBay. I do a lot of sales through through my social media platforms. It's a way for me to engage with customers. Some of these cards I will probably find a way to give away just for people who haven't seen the new Pokemon cards before and just are maybe looking to dip their toes in. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. This is me signing off, and